Good evening, children. Welcome once again. It's been over a month since we met, and I thought it would be a pleasant surprise for you to meet me through this medium. Welcome once again, children. Hope you're all safe and fine. Let me introduce your new English textbook for class 7, Honeycomb. And I thought I would spend a few minutes with you dealing with a new poem. The Squirrel, written by Mildred Bowers Armstrong. Children, yesterday when I went for my morning walk, I saw a beautiful scene, a scene that gave me much happiness, a scene that amused me. I saw a few squirrels running over the bushes, the trees, and the road as I went for my walk. We are all into the lockdown, and the squirrels and the birds, they have nature for themselves. It was so exciting to watch that squirrel jumping over the bushes, jumping over the road. Let me start this poem. Let me make a reading. It's a short poem of 6 lines. He wore a question mark for tail, an overcoat of grey. He sat up straight to eat a nut. He liked to tease and play, and if we ran around his tree, he went the other way. Just look at the first line. He wore a question mark for tail. Dear children, just close your eyes and visualize a tiny squirrel. Just imagine, how does a squirrel sit while having a nut? It sits up straight with a tail, a bushy tail, standing upright. And the tail looks like a question mark. Imagine this little scene in your eyes. Close your eyes for a second. An overcoat of grey. An overcoat of grey. The poet refers to the color of the squirrel's skin. We all know that the squirrel has a grey shade. He sat up straight to eat a nut. He liked to tease and play. And if we ran around his tree, he went the other way. What type of a creature is the squirrel? It's tiny, it's quick, it's alert, it's playful, it's very active and alert. And of course, it's the most fascinating creature. I think watching a squirrel will give pleasure to people of all ages, whether it's a small child or a baby, or a child like you, or a teacher like me, your parents, your grandparents. They would all enjoy watching a little squirrel's activities. Now, let me go back to the first line. He wore a question mark for tail. Look at the sound at the end. Tail. Let's examine line 2. An overcoat of grey. The sound is different. So for the first sound at the end of line 1, tail, we name it A. Second, grey. It's a different sound. So B. What about the third line? He sat up straight to eat a nut. The last line has an entire different sound. So let's give it a name C. Now let's go to the line 4. He liked to tease and play. The sound play, it rhymes with grey. So shall we give it B? And the next one, if we ran around his tree, a different sound. So let us name it D. And again look at the last line. Way. It rhymes with the second line. So shall we give it B? So the rhyme scheme is A, B, C, B, D and B. The rhyme scheme of poem. Now let me introduce you to something very exciting. When we learn poems, when we learn poetry, there are certain figures of speech. They are called figures of speech or literary devices. The poets use them to make the poem more musical, more attractive when you listen. Now the first one is alliteration. I have it here. Alliteration. What is alliteration? Let's look at the third line of the poem. He sat up straight to eat a nut. Children, please note there are two words, sat and straight, in the same line which start with the same consonant sound. So we call it alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant sound in two words in a poem. See whether you can pick out any other alliteration from this poem. Now, we go to another figure of speech, which is assonance. Now, what does assonance mean? Let's examine line 2. An overcoat of grey. An, A is a vowel, O also is a vowel. So when you have repetition of two vowel sounds in a line, we call it assonance. Now the next one, Anaphora. Just look at line 3 and 4, children. He sat up straight to eat a nut. He liked to tease and play. When two lines begin with the same sound or the same word, he and he, we call it anaphora. Now, the last one is personification. Again, I go back to line 1. He wore a question mark for tail. Who wore a question mark for a tail? The squirrel. And the poet calls the squirrel as he. He is a pronoun which we use for human beings. So when a poet gives a human qualities to an animal or an inanimate, lifeless object, we call it personification. Here the squirrel is personified. The poet says he wears a coat. Who wears a coat usually, children? Human beings. So giving human beings qualities to inanimate objects, we call it personification. Let me have a recap of the figures of speech. Alliteration, when you have repetition of consonant sounds. Assonance, when you have a repetition of vowel sounds. What is anaphora? When two lines in a poem start with the same word. And personification is giving human qualities to animals or inanimate objects. When I think about the squirrel, children, let me share a beautiful story which I have grown up hearing from my teachers, and all of you are familiar. That little squirrel in the Ramayana. While they were having the construction of a bridge over the ocean to connect to Lanka, the monkeys were bringing huge boulders, big rocks. The little squirrel actively was bringing tiny pebbles to help in the construction. And Lord Rama was very happy with the squirrel and stroked the squirrel. And those 3 lines on a squirrel's back, according to the story, is Lord Rama's caressing. So on the whole, the squirrel is a beautiful creature, a very active, lively. These are words you can associate with the squirrel. Frisky, alert, quick, active, playful, naughty. He dodges you if you try. I don't think any human being has ever succeeded in outwitting a squirrel in running or speed. So that's the little squirrel. I hope you've enjoyed this poem. You have noted the rhyme scheme, that is A, B, C, B, D and B. And it's a beautiful poem which has alliteration, assonance, anaphora and personification. Once again, let me recite the poem for you. He wore a question mark for tail, an overcoat of grey. He sat up straight to eat a nut. He liked to tease and play. And if we ran around his tree, he went the other way. So the poet Mildred Boas Armstrong has taken us beautifully to a squirrel through these 6 lines. So let me give you an activity, children. Why don't you recite this poem and send me an audio message personally? And one more work in an A4 size paper which you can preserve for me to correct when we meet again. That is, you make a beautiful picture of the squirrel and do a web chart. A recap of the squirrel's qualities. A squirrel is alert, frisky, very active, mischievous, naughty, playful, and you can add to the list. Hope you've enjoyed this poem. Let me sign off. I think very soon we'll be overcoming these dark days and we shall be meeting again in classrooms. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that I shall meet my dear students, Thank you. Take care. Love you all.